Hi, welcome to ArtC. I'm your host, Bill Horin. My guest today is Doug Clayton, also known as the FilmDoc. He is the owner of FilmDoc Productions. And Doug is a documentary filmmaker who has made such films as Davari and The Heart of Camden, the story of Father Michael Doyle, which ArtC is proud to be a part of. Doug, welcome to ArtC.
Hey, Bill, thanks for having me on the show. Much appreciated. Good to see you again.
Doug, when did you first become interested in making documentaries?
I started in 2010 when I was earning my doctoral degree at University of Pennsylvania in corporate learning. And there was a semester focused on using technology to create, learning interventions. And one of the technologies that fascinated me the most was the use of film. And while we were, making small films in that class, I thought to myself, I'd love to try to make a documentary, a short documentary one day.
So Camden seems to be a big part of your documentaries. Like Barry Levinson used Baltimore for his films. You seem to do them in Camden. Why Camden?
I grew up next to Camden. I grew up in Collingswood, New Jersey, and I spent, almost my entire life there. And so I was very much aware of Camden. Didn't really spend any time in Camden, but I knew it was a great city at one point, and then there was a serious tragic downfall starting in the late 60s. Didn't really know why, didn't know much about it, but I always had Camden in my head, never in my heart. That came later, I think, but never, but always in my head. It was always in our mind, whether it was in the newspapers, but it was usually in the form of great tragedy. And then one day, my wife and I went to a play in a theater in Camden, the Waterfront South Theater, and watched an incredible play called Last Rites that was written by a fellow named Joe Pabzicki. And I knew Joe from a distance because we both went to the same high school, but we weren't close friends, but I knew him. And I said to him afterwards that I wept after watching his play. And I said, this is an amazing story. There's a play about your grandfather and his life in Camden, and the play takes place in his bar, Walt's Cafe. In this theater that you helped build, along with the Heart of Camden, Father Doyle, and Pepe Paperno, is where the bar stood. So that connection just floored me, and I asked him if he would mind if I try to make a short documentary of the theater and the story there. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Having spent so much time there in the last year, I see what you're talking about. So Davari has done very well, especially in film festivals. What does the name Davari mean?
Davari is an Italian word for responsibility, duty. While we made the film Davari for Camden, we had no idea that we would call it that, but we interviewed Pepe Paperno, who is a Camden kid, similar to Joe Pabzicki. Both of them spent their formative years in Camden. Their parents moved away. Then they came back and decided to try to make a difference in Camden. But Pepe, in the interview, talked about the word Davari that his mother used to use. She's from Italy, and how it was very important for Pepe to have to be responsible for family members, for his uncle, his godfather, and for other people. And that always stayed with Pepe, the word Davari. And so, and it means a lot to me too, actually. And his emotion in the interviews really touched anyone who's watched the film. And so I just thought that it was very fitting to call the film Davari for Camden.
Last year, you asked ArtC if we'd be interested in doing a documentary with you. How did that documentary come about?
First of all, I've seen some of your films, and I think they're brilliant. They're beautifully filmed. Technically, they're superb. I think you all tell good stories. So I was very impressed with the work from ArtC. You and I spoke a couple times on the phone. Didn't really know you well, but you and I said, maybe one day we can collaborate. Well, then shortly after that, Carlos Morales, who's the executive director of the Heart of Camden, who watched Davari and was very impressed with the storytelling, asked me if I would consider, making a documentary on the Heart of Camden and, featuring Father Doyle. And of course, that's a great compliment. That's a wonderful honor for someone to ask me to be involved with such a thing. I then reached out to you and said, Bill, I think we have a really good project here. And then the rest is history, as they say.
Father Doyle quickly became the subject of the documentary. And the first time I met Father Doyle was with you. We were doing a walkthrough through Camden. And we went up to this room, and he was in there surrounded by several people. And I saw this humble man with this quirky sense of humor, and the people around him seemed like they were in awe of him. I mean, there was just a reverence or something going on. And then as we got doing the documentary and we got to know him, I'm like, wow, I mean, this guy is just so great to work with. And what he has accomplished is just absolutely amazing. So did you know much about him before the project? And what was your impression as we got into the project?
I knew a little bit about him just from the newspapers. He's kind of legendary in Camden for what he's done. I mean, but think about your average Catholic priest and the life of a priest in a parish. It's usually, I don't know, what, 2, 3 years, maybe 4. He has been in Camden for over 50, 60 years. It would have been easy for him to move out of Camden to go into the suburbs, but he insisted on staying in the city of Camden, and specifically in the Waterfront South area, which was an extremely violent area at times. And, you know, he went to Camden when Camden began its decline, and he refused to leave. So I knew a little bit about him in that regard. I remember him being interviewed on 60 Minutes a number of years ago. But besides that, I didn't know much. And then when we filmed Davari for Camden, I met him and I spent an hour with him. Was thoroughly impressed. You know, I tried to give him credit for doing amazing things in Camden that I had heard about, and he would always say, "It's not me." He says, "I'm just the tool of God," he would say, and he would give credit to everybody else. He seemed to be someone who was, in a way, kind of a rock star priest for that area, but absolutely humble and would take no credit at all for anything that's happened.
Yeah, he's been an advocate for so many causes, not just in Camden, but like against the Vietnam War, for example. And we have a clip where he talks about that we're going to show now.
There's a story in the Bible where Jesus is talking to a group in Jerusalem. And in the course of his talking, a soldier came up and punched him. Now, he had 3 choices. He could have punched him back and thrown him into the Mediterranean. Or he could grin and bear it, say nothing. He didn't do either one, but he challenged it. And he said to everybody there, "If I have spoken evil, prove it. And if I haven't, why did you strike me?" So a nonviolent person isn't a zombie, someone who challenges but doesn't strike back.
One of Father Doyle's favorite sayings is "do your bit." He says that many times, and it kind of sunk in why he would say that, because the world's problems seem so big that we just feel like we're helpless against them. But if we just do something, if we just do our bit, we can make a difference. We're going to show a clip that talks about that. So how did you feel about that saying?
It resonated immediately, you know, because the context of "do your bit" is Father Doyle told us that there were people who would say, "But I just don't have enough money, I don't have enough influence, I don't have enough skills, I don't have enough of anything to make a difference." And he would tell them, "No, just do whatever you can do. Just do your bit, and that's enough. God will take care of the rest." Now, it's so simple and yet so incredibly empowering and meaningful. So I was very impressed with it. It struck home right away.
Do your bit. That's one of my philosophical statements.
Do your bit. It's all you can do. And what that does for you, what that does for a lot of people, is take all the pressure of society off you and really allow you to follow your passion of what you're good at. Do your bit. It's all you can do.
And if everybody did their bit, it would be a better world. You always could do your own bit. B-I-T.
The organization, the Heart of Camden, was founded by Father Michael Doyle, and it's a very important organization in Camden. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization?
The Heart of Camden was an idea that Father Doyle had because, to create a framework, some structure, to put some type of process in place to take these wonderful ideas that he had been getting from other people like Sister Peg Hines and a whole cast of characters, I'll say, in the Waterfront South area. So how do you take these ideas and then actually implement, execute? So it's fantastic to be, innovative and creative, but you need to be able to actually get things done. And so that's how the Heart of Camden was formed. Their primary area of focus was, and I believe still is to provide housing to people. Now, they don't just provide free housing. Folks have to buy these homes. What they do is the Heart of Camden will either purchase homes or homes that are donated to them. Most of them are in deplorable condition. And then they figure out ways to renovate these homes and then sell them to residents. Almost all of them are Camden residents, not all of them. Some of them move in from out of state, but almost all of them are Camden residents. So the housing piece where they've provided well over 200 homes over the years. I mean, think about that. These homes probably would have been continue to be dilapidated and abandoned and destroyed, but they were able to breathe life into these homes. And then he's also created other things through the Heart of Camden, or I'll say the Heart of Camden has created other things such as a theater and a writer's house and an art and a center for artists. So it's amazing what the Heart of Camden has done in terms of providing housing, but also providing beauty to that neighborhood.
Doug, there's one more clip that we're going to show to end the show today, and that's the one where Father Doyle talks about his grandfather. And I thought that was such a poignant story. What did you get out of that clip?
It's about being positive with terrible conditions. And it's not just Father Doyle, but it's a lot of people who live in cities that are impoverished, that are struggling. The conditions are just unthinkable. And, those of us who have grown up in the suburbs, we're very blessed, and it's hard for us to even begin to imagine. So when he says that his grandfather used to, come in from the wet fields of Ireland after farming in a terrible rainstorm and take off his hat and shake and say, "It's a terrible day. It's a terrible day. Thanks be to God." It's a very powerful message that stayed with Father Doyle and stays with me too. I mean, those of us, if you're faced with a bad situation, just have faith. And there's a reason why it's a bad situation.
My grandfather was the one who said, he said it often, "It's a terrible day, thanks be to God." He would go out to plow or any job, and a half an hour after he had started, the heavens would open, the rain would come down, and it would wet him to the skin. And when it did, he had to leave the field, come into the kitchen, take off his wet cap and shake it into the fire and say, "It's a terrible day, thanks be to God."
Doug, I want to thank you for being on the show today. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite documentaries, and hopefully it'll premiere this fall. We're really looking forward to that. This has been ArtC. I'm Bill Horin. Thanks for watching.